So we're live here on Avalanche Spaces. It's been a little while since we had one, so we're really excited to jump back in and talk about one of the biggest news, especially for the DeFi space on Avalanche, is the integration of Chainlink Data Streams with the GMX protocol. And so we're going to let both teams kind of talk about how everything works and kind of get into the details. So let's start off. We'd love to hear some intros, so you guys, the audience may not be familiar with you. Just would love to hear about who you are and what you do. Let's start off on the Chainlink side. So Raoul, you want to give us a quick intro?
Yeah, for sure. Always happy. My name is Raoul Schipper. I'm actually from the Netherlands, as you could probably tell by my last name. I'm the product lead for Data Streams, and I help out on our GMX relationship.
Nice. Welcome. Excited to have you on for the first time, and excited to kind of dive more into Chainlink and what you're working on. I'm going to kick it over to the GMX team. So Jonezee, if you want to say hello.
Hello. I'm Jonezee, communications coordinator for GMX since the last 2.5 years, roughly. Crypto class of 2017. I have an elaborate background in communications and really enjoying doing that in the DeFi space for the last couple of years or so. And it's a pleasure to contribute to GMX with my skills in that sense. Good to be here with you all, and I'm very glad to see a lot of people tune in because we have a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to the Data Streams launch.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot to get into, and the room will fill up as we go along too. So hopefully folks enjoy the conversation. CoinFlip, you want to give a quick intro?
Hi, CoinFlip Canada. I'm one of the contributors at GMX. Wonderful to be back on an Avalanche Spaces after a little bit of time. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think this is one of those real great coming togethers where wonderful things that, the Eva Labs and the Avalanche team, Chainlink, and ourselves have been able to work together to hopefully do some really interesting unlocks for, DeFi on Avalanche.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting unlocks around this innovation. So thanks for joining us. And then last but not least, Eric from the Avalabs team. I'll kick it over to you to say what's up and then take it away from here with the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Kyle. So I'm Eric. I'm part of the Alva Labs business development team. These days I oversee our DeFi vertical, but I've been with the company for a long time, so got to wear multiple hats along the way. Before Alva Labs, I was working in traditional finance, doing mostly M&A consulting for private equity as well as corporates. So I've got to see kind of both sides to it a little bit. But I'm also class of 2017 for crypto, so I started investing around then, and finally took the leap in 2020. So excited to be here. I think there's a lot to go over today. But I wanted to kind of set the stage first. And this is maybe more of a question for the Chainlink team. But how would you, at a very basic level, right? Explain the core functionality of the data streams that just got integrated on Avalanche, and how does that actually integrate with the chain itself?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Eric. So Chainlink Data Streams is a very new product. I think most people know us from the push feeds, what we call data feeds. In that case, the node operators produce price and then they push that on chain. So for example, the Bitcoin price, node operators come to consensus and then bring that on chain for example, at Aave or Compound to consume those prices. Now, the big difference with data streams is that it's very, very, very low latency, and it's also off-chain. So it's a pool-based oracle. What that means is the node operators are basically running consensus rounds multiple times per second instead of once every couple seconds, as might be the case with data feeds. And then they come to consensus on that price, and they don't push it on-chain, but instead they push it to what we call the data streams aggregation network. And those prices just sit in the aggregation network ready for somebody like a GMX to come and fetch that price. And what that means is that when GMX needs the freshest price, they don't have to wait for us to push something. They can go out and get it. And a very big unlock here that we have with the Avalanche launch is that now they can go to any chain where GMX is deployed and use that same price anywhere. So it's super low latency. It's nice and easy exactly when you need it, and it's on any chain where you go to.
Yeah, I remember the first iteration of the Chainlink oracles actually launched, I think, exactly almost 3 years ago. So it's great to see that the next iteration kind of coming into the fold. I wanted to ask, like, so I've noticed that, like, in the DeFi ecosystem, a lot of the newer oracles are pull-based oracles. You kind of access the data as you need it, right? Pretty much on demand. Were there any specific challenges you guys saw in the DeFi space that kind of led to this moment? It led to the creation of the Chainlink Data Streams, as well as the launch most recently here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is actually the story of our partnership with GMX as well, where what we were noticing was the original data feeds. You've also been around for quite a while. It's been quite a ride for us. But with the original data feeds, we produce prices, and we can basically guarantee that they stay within whatever deviation threshold we set, and we're very, very good at that. But when you build a perp DEX, even like a 20-second delay is gonna like be very bad, basically. Like, you need to make sure that you don't get front run, because as a perp DEX, what's important is that the time period between when a price change happens on a centralized exchange and when that price change is available in your application for your users is as short as possible. Frankly, a second is too long in some cases. So you really need to be as fast as you can possibly get. And with push feeds, you can do pretty good, but you are basically not going to hit that second. And especially on slower blockchains, you are just not going to be able to do that because the block times are even too long. So what we noticed with our push feeds is these are super, super good at securing, let's call them the lending markets, for example, like an Aave or a Compound, where it's not super relevant if you're like in this particular second or in that particular second, as long as the ratios between the assets are good enough. But on an application like a perp DEX like GMX, you need to be as fast as possible. And that's really, like, we really forced ourselves to be as good as possible. In this case, we really did a lot of work in the background as well. We rebuilt our entire Donna architecture, took all the things that were good and made it even faster, just to build this Data Streams product together with GMX. And that's also why they were our launch partner 9 months ago now.
Gotcha. And for a lot of the users on these platforms, right? Obviously, having reliable data, data is very, very important, because they want to make sure that the health of their positions are constantly being managed, right, on the protocol side. But I think more practically, right, if if there are positions that are on the cusp of, let's say, being liquidated, right, they want to make sure that it triggers at the right price, right, and not before, not too long after, from a protocol's perspective. So when it comes to Chainlink's infrastructure, you mentioned that you guys made a lot of upgrades from a backend infrastructure perspective. Are there any examples you want to highlight, and how do you kind of maintain like the credibility of the data on the backend? I know there's probably a third parties like providing that data, right, at a base level.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I just very quickly want to touch upon your point around the liquidations and such. Maybe a good way to illustrate that is on an application like Aave. If you put up like $1 of collateral, then they might extend you, I don't know, 50 cents worth of borrowing power. So if you need to get liquidated, and for example, you have a deviation on a normal push feed of like 0.5%, so it always gets updated when the price changes 0.5%, that works, that's fine. At most, you're like 0.5% off. But on a perp DEX like GMX, you might have leverage of up to 20 times or even 50 times. And suddenly that 0.5% difference turns into like 25% difference. And suddenly you're actually liquidating somebody at a very terrible price and leaving them or the protocol with a lot of bad debt. And that kind of leads into the second point, which is it's super important to make sure that you're reliable and accurate. And those are two separate things. So one is, how do you make sure that people can actually get prices when they need those prices? And two, how can you make sure that the price is actually accurate, that it's actually the thing that it's supposed to be reflecting? And both of these, we've done a lot of work on the data stream side. So obviously our data feeds have been securing a huge amount of TVL in DeFi for years. So we didn't want to like radically change anything, but we wanted to evolve what was really good already. So one of the things that we did is we went from what we call OCR2, that's basically our way of aggregating prices, to OCR3. And that drops the time period between producing a new price to less than a second. So suddenly we're producing multiple prices per second rather than one per like 10, 20 seconds. Second, we're working with the super, super high quality tier 1 data providers on data streams. Like the requirements to be a data provider on data streams is very, very high. And we need to make sure that the assets that we list are super accurate, because we're going to be producing a price at least every second. It needs to be a good price. So the data providers also are very important to have good selection there. The third piece is on the data streams aggregation network and also on the node operators themselves. It's really important that the software is not only super good, but that the people also run really good software, they run on good hardware, that the communication between the nodes goes well, that the data streams aggregation network goes well. Frankly, I'm super proud of what the data streams team has achieved with this product, and the reliability has been really, really stellar. We have basically no price report staleness. We have super high uptime, super high reliability. And we're really hoping to bring all the benefits that we brought to data feeds, to like our push feeds, out to the pool market as well, and really, really win that reliability game.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it does sound like a pretty large step forward for you guys. I guess I have maybe a two-part follow-up to this. So I guess in terms of like number of assets, right? In terms of number of assets, like do you guys foresee to be more assets that are able to be added through the data streams, or is it because like the requirements are a lot higher for these types of streams? Like, is it going to be more selective in terms of like assets that you guys are adding to that are being enabled? And then I guess the second part to that question is, do you guys foresee your existing clients, right? Mostly, I would say mostly DeFi protocols, switching to the new data streams, or do you expect like some of them will stay with the push-based oracles for a longer period of time?
Yeah, those are really good questions. I think on the assets itself, the goal is obviously for data streams to have a huge shelf of products. One big difference between data feeds and data streams for us, well, two big differences, I guess. Difference number one is that any feed that's listed on data streams is immediately available on all chains. So we deploy it on AVAX, and now every single asset that we list anywhere is also going to be available on AVAX. So if we go to like 100, 200, 300 feeds, which is all in works, they will also immediately be available on AVAX. The second piece is it's a bit more of the other way around, where if you are a DeFi protocol on AVAX and somebody wants to use a particular push feed or something similar, what you're going to run into is you're going to need to pay the gas for that. Like somebody ultimately needs to pay gas, it takes extra time, a whole new DAW needs to be spun up. And what you really get is on the longer tail assets, it's kind of patchy on which chains you want to launch these, because somebody has to have enough demand to be worth the gas and the DAW and all that kind of work. Well, on data streams, we can just list a long tail asset, and anybody can use it on any chain whenever they want to. So the goal is for data streams to have hundreds of assets, and that's going to be what we call these like super high quality trading assets that GMX is using. So super fast, super low latency. But we also want to be able to support longer tail assets. So that might mean assets that trade on DEXs, which have all kinds of new unique features. I mean, imagine if something trades only on like Curve on mainnet, it only updates once every 12 seconds, the price, because the block time is 12 seconds. So how do you deal with that on data streams? And also we want to be able to support a lot of Forex and commodity feeds, for example. So all of that's in the works, and we're working with the GMX community to make sure that we put up anything that they need, frankly.
Awesome. Yeah, I know we focused on the Chainlink side for a little bit, but I'd like to switch gears to the GMX team. Jonezee, CoinFlip, could you guys maybe give us like maybe a little bit behind the scenes on what you guys been up to with Chainlink? I know this has been a multi-month, maybe a year-long effort at this point. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that integration process was. If there were any any challenges working through it, and congrats again, and just getting all this launched.
Yeah, why don't I take this one? And you, Eric, you're right. I mean, this has actually been well over a year between both, working together on sort of like, let's call it pre-development, and then having it live in testing, and really now finally getting to this sort of, I don't know, version two of oracles with Chainlink, which we're now deploying on Avalanche. I think what's been really great has been that we both managed to actually, I think, approach this saying, what are the actual requirements that the industry needs? Now, I think it's safe to say that GMX is one of the larger perp dexes in the space, and one that is highly reliant on oracles. For us, the sensitivity and getting this right was was bar none. And I think having a partner like Chainlink who was equally focused in making sure they understood our requirements. I think much the way that when they created data feeds years ago, I think the lending protocols that were mentioned were kind of like the forefront of what was starting up on DeFi. Being able to sort of work collaboratively, work through, these design issues. The fact that we're now moving collectively to these timestamp-based oracles that will allow us to be able to operate on multiple chains simultaneously with the same data, which will give us, again, a lot more flexibility as we continue to iterate design on the protocol. Being able to support a wider range of assets now, and again, I think what Raoul sort of just mentioned, how you think about the risks on each of these assets, it's wonderful being able to talk to people who are having those same thought processes, because if I think about what holds us back right now, it's the edge cases. Because in crypto, the devil lives in those edge cases, and people are always looking for them and they're always hitting at them. And so, a combination of us, Chaos Labs, who are our risk managers, Chainlink, I think every time we list a market, every time we look at doing updates, the fact that we know there's so many people who are just way smarter than us involved in this process gives us great confidence. So, yeah, I mean, it's a process that in some senses has taken a long time within crypto years. But when I look at the actual, what this underpins in terms of our markets and for others, I think it's phenomenal that, how quickly it's sort of all come together.
Yeah, you guys probably couldn't have launched it at a better time, honestly, because I think a year ago from today, I think the markets are still pretty sleepy. So I think now that everything's starting to pick up again, people are starting to trade more on chain. You've seen volumes just pick up like crazy the past couple months. So I think this is all very very good timing when it comes to getting this up and running. And I'm curious, like, did you from a GMX perspective look at other options in terms of these new upgraded feeds? I know that there's a couple of providers out there that have similar products, right? Push based oracles, super low latency. I'm curious what kind of drove the decision to go with Chainlink. I know you guys have been partners for a long time, so I'd imagine that played a bit of a factor.
Well, okay. I think the way I would put it is this: we absolutely did look at other solutions, but I think for us, I think a lot of other solutions were coming to market and they were moving very quickly. But again, I think us being able to draw confidence in I don't have the best words for this, but the fact that Chainlink, the way that they were putting engineering resources, data analytics resources, looking at this gave us confidence. Us being able to get visibility as to what was working well and what wasn't working well and how we were going to continue to work to improve it so that when we reached production, we had a product that worked for us. That for us was really important. I'll almost say that somebody saying, no, we're not sure we can do something is something I'd rather hear, because then we can all figure out what we can do and what we can't do, as opposed to people who say, we'll just make everything work. And so I think, for me, I think that was one of the things that I think for us really mattered. I mean, Chainlink is, let's call it, the blue chip in the industry when it comes to oracles, but it's a well-earned reputation because they've worked so hard over the years to make sure the quality of the data they put out is reliable. And for a platform like GMX, our goal was simple. We wanted to make sure that there was decentralized, trustworthy data that could underpin our platform, and that we could leave our contributors to then focus on continuing to build out the platform, build out the markets, and deal with the other side of it. And that's also why, when I think it's pretty innovative. I'm not sure if Chainlink's done it yet, still with anybody else. We actually structured our entire relationship with Chainlink, which obviously covered, more than a year now of working together on building out these new oracles, and we built it on a revenue share basis. Chainlink participates in the success of GMX as GMX continues to grow. We see them, as being aligned with, the safety security of our platform. And so it matters to them, I would say, that we do well, and that, by delivering that reliable data, they will also do better.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to like Chainlink's impact on the Avalanche ecosystem as well, I don't think that can be understated. I'm looking at DeFi TVL here, right? And out of the 800 mil, I think Chainlink probably secures about 650, maybe pushing 700. of that, just through Benchy, Aave, as well as GMX, right, being the main contributors. So in addition, right, we also work with Chainlink on a variety of other things, right, proof of reserves. We work with Chainlink on our Bitcoin Ethereum bridges, as well as use CCIP for a lot of our institutional, cross-chain efforts. So I think that cannot be understated in terms of like just beyond Oracle's, right, that whole suite of products that they offer. So excited to kind of see that development, and relationship improve over time. And just from like a very functional level, right? Oracles aren't necessarily user facing. When I'm trading, or anyone is trading on GMX, right? Don't really think about like, hey, like what is actually like, who is actually contributing to the pricing of these assets right on the back end. People just want to make sure what matters to people is that the platform works. They're able to place trades, cancel them. When they're getting close to the liquidation points, that they're able to manage those positions appropriately, right? So I think could you maybe like elaborate a little bit on like has there been with the new data streams, right? Does it impact user experience? Does it improve how users are able to use the GMX platform? Could you maybe dive into that a little bit, Jonezee or CoinFlip?
Jones, did you want to grab that one?
Yeah, sure. I think it touches on a lot of that was mentioned already in terms of what Chainlink Data Streams improves for users of GMX. And it basically comes down to those even lower execution times. Being on a great blockchain like Avalanche really helps a tremendous amount. And creating a proper on-chain perpetuals exchange really requires a blockchain with those type of characteristics, that type of high throughput, low fees situation. And I think Chainlink Data Streams, by offering this very low latency, basically the lowest latency data you can find, further really improves on that UX for traders and brings the execution down another notch. We're currently looking at trades executing in under 2 seconds, sometimes even under 1 second, and that's quite an incredible achievement, I think, for an on-chain perpetuals exchange. So that type of very fast execution is obviously a major fact of major importance for any trader. And for the rest, it's the underlying aspect of just having reliant data and making sure that something like front running isn't an option. There's so much that goes into the security and really guaranteeing the robustness of a platform. So much time and energy is spent on that, and that really all takes place in the back end. Is something that a user or a DeFi liquidity provider should never really have to be concerned about or have to deal with. But at the same time, it's for a protocol like GMX, that's something that's absolutely foundational, and working with Chainlink really has ensured that we get the best possible execution in that regard as well.
Yeah, and CoinFlip, you touched upon something earlier. You said, kind of like the devil's in the edge cases, right? Could you maybe elaborate on that point a little bit? Because I think that is really important for the audience. I think, anyone can really force the GMX contracts, right? And people have done so in the past. But what's really tough about the platform, from my understanding, is actually all the management, right, that goes on in the back end to manage for risk, to make sure that the infrastructure is reliable. Could you maybe touch upon, what some of those edge cases could be, and what the potential risks are for both the platforms and the user?
Of course. I think for this question, I'll be going slightly wider than just Chainlink then, because I think that, Eric, as you sort of touched on, building a platform like GMX, there's a lot of the protocol that runs completely autonomously. Like I said, all of it does, but a lot of it does require updates to configurations, and those configuration updates are an important part of this process. So one second, I've got a bit of an echo. Just give me 10 seconds. Sorry about that. Just having a bit of a tech issue. And as part of this process, what's happened is that, we always end up spending time looking at risk parameters. Risk parameters may be the size of the market, what are the price impact that positions have, how can we take more and more data over time so that without any hopefully intervention, these markets will continue to function well, and both traders and liquidity providers have confidence in the neutrality of how these markets are built. And I think that's where data streams was for us a big unlock. It was about having contracts that could take more and more live data as opposed to historically what most oracles provided you, which was simply quote unquote the price. The thing that we all start to realize is, and I think anybody who tries to trade at any sort of scale is, the question is never the price. The question is, what is the price given the size that you want to deal with? And that relates to the size of the trade, that's the size of a liquidation, countless other factors. And that's sort of what I think, working with somebody like Chainlink has been part of. When we talk about issues like latency, now that's more of a user experience standpoint. The lower and lower we get latency, the quicker we are able to execute trades, the more frictionless that experience is. But with each of those optimizations does come some level of risk, right? Because especially if you use an example, more of a TradFi example, we all know about the lengths that organizations have gone to try to get closer to the point of an exchange, because that ability to front run other people has been so critical. Likewise, the way that most MEV activity happens on chain, it's always been about who has better data and better knowledge. And if you don't think about these things, what happens is that you're just constantly bleeding value. And so much of our effort has been to make sure that, on one side, traders should always get a fair and equitable market, and liquidity providers should hopefully get, if we can minimize losses for liquidity providers by ensuring that there's as little bleed as possible, other than them supporting trading these liquid markets, we try to focus there. So I think I've kind of answered that question a bit, but I mean, there's a whole other area, as you said, in terms of operational requirements when it comes to the infrastructure you use to support everything else. It's sort of, I think there are expenses that most people don't even understand. I would say that, you start using public infrastructure like blockchains, but you actually start having to support them both on your UI, with APIs, with everything else, with the sort of infrastructure that central exchanges also invest in. And that's kind of collectively the sort of efforts that you need to start doing to give the experience that I think users deserve and are demanding, as having an on-chain experience as becoming not an option but an expectation, but delivering it at that quality is needs to start becoming a given.
Gotcha. Yeah, and there's another thing I wanted to highlight here. So I know and kind of like this philosophy for you and the team, right, is to try to have as much of it be reflected on chain as possible. And I think that's obviously true to the ethos of DeFi and everything. I know it's there's probably some challenges along the way, right, and kind of building that infrastructure. These days, a lot of the perp dexes that are being launched on chain, right, they kind of do the order matching execution, almost like this a lot of cases like this black box, like almost off-chain infrastructure, right? Could you maybe dive into that a little bit on the GMX side, like how you guys have balanced, right, the on-chain off-chain piece, and kind of the philosophy on that going forward?
Absolutely. So what I'd like to say is that with GMX, what's great is there is no black box. The the matrix of how everything will be executed is directly visible on chain. The only things that kind of are off chain is the fact that there is an oracle, which is obviously bringing us data from bringing off chain data that's being brought on chain. So it's obviously very important to make sure that that is as trust minimized and as reliable as possible. And that for us, obviously, working with somebody like Chainlink and their entire network of data providers and independent node operators to provide that's a critical piece of the puzzle. And then making sure that we do actually post on chain data that allows you to go back and verify that everything that has been committed that within the GMX contracts as to how the data was collected, what was stored, is actually stored on chain. It is a little bit more data intensive. You could shortcut and remove some of that information. I think some people do. Our view, though, is that as we look to a future that becomes more and more on-chain, we do want that settlement, that proof of all activity to be available. And that's why I think I don't think anybody's been able to ever come back and say that GMX didn't perform the way GMX was intended to. You may not be. It may be that the price was higher or lower than you expected, but it's exactly independently established. It's something that is at this stage outside of the hands of anybody at GMX, and that was always was our goal. And with data streams now being live, we finally have the type of oracle that can provide that to us.
Yeah, for sure. And sorry, my dog's playing with some toys in the background. This is more of a question. It could be a question for the Chainlink or GMX team, honestly. But I was wondering, in terms of supporting different chains, right? Obviously, Avalanche launched, for almost 4 years ago at this point. When we launched, and even today, right, we have around 2-second block times. Some of the newer chains out there, even some L1s on Avalanche are launching, with faster block times, maybe more gas, higher gas limits per block. Does this affect any of the configurations for data streams, or is it more because of the off-chain architecture? Is it irrespective of these parameters?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I'll take that quickly, and then maybe it would be very good to have GMX's view on this because, frankly, they've said some pretty brilliant things looking at latency. Quickly on the latency part, so the benefit number one is that it's off-chain and you can go and get it no matter when you want a price on data streams. Like you can go out and get a particular second, a particular moment, settle a particular asset at a particular time. You can basically have an updated price whenever you want to. That latency piece is definitely affected by block times. So if you look at something like Ethereum mainnet, right, where you have 12-second block times, what that means is that, well, frankly, how do you even handle that as a protocol? Like if you go and fetch your price at second 0, then you might only be able to include it in block number 2, which is at second 12 to 24. So that means that there's always going to be like a 12-second gap between you fetching a price and you getting a price. And that means that the experience is always going to be slightly less snappy. It's not going to feel as good. And there's possibly, depending on how you develop your protocol, a slight bit of a front-runnable window there. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use that, but it does mean that certain super low latency applications will be much harder to build. And this is something, frankly, this is basically the reason why Avalanche is the second chain where we deployed. It's really fast. It's really nice and snappy. Arbitrum's got great fast block times. Well, AVAX does too. So this is one of those places where you can actually take advantage of that low latency as an application.
Yeah, gotcha. And just looking forward a little bit, are there any are there further improvements to be made on the data stream product? I'm assuming probably the more basic things, right? More chains to be deployed, more assets being added. But are you guys maybe are you guys working through any structural or architectural improvements that that we should get excited about?
Yeah, I think there is I need to be quite careful. I think the marketing team or the legal team might be listening in to what I'm saying there. But we're working on a lot of stuff. And obviously there's going to be, expanding the chains that we're on, expanding the assets that we're listing. But even on the asset side itself, there's a huge amount of stuff to be working on. So there's, more crypto assets, there's more DEX-based assets, there's more RWAs, there's Forex, there's commodities, spot commodities, futures commodities, stocks, custom indices. Technically data streams is not even so much a price production engine as it is a data production engine. And you could plug in all kinds of other pieces of data into data streams. Like imagine particular pieces of weather data just constantly being updated, only used on the chains where you want it to be used, or something like our proof of reserve oracle. Like rather than having to push that onto a chain, it's just available there, and anybody can go and check what the exact collateral is at this particular second. So there's a lot of places, like even on the data side and on the pricing side, that we can improve. One other thing that I'd really like to highlight for data streams, and that I think is going to be quite important, is most of the competing oracles, in fact, as far as I know, all of the competing oracles, they produce a mid price or maybe a traded price. So basically one price. They look at what was traded and then they say, hey, that's the price right now. But Data Streams also produces a bid and an ask price. And this is something that we've worked very closely with GMX on because, frankly, they're really good at this kind of stuff. And we don't only produce the actual trading price, but we produce a spread. So we look at basically the order books across a whole bunch of crypto exchanges, so all across DeFi and all across CeFi. We aggregate all those order books, and then we execute a hypothetical trade. And then we give you the mid price of that order book, but also what would be a realistic bid and a realistic ask price. And that allows you to understand what is the actual condition of the market right now, not based off of what some market makers feeling, but what's actually visible in the order book. And that's some data that, for example, GMX can be using to both protect their own protocol, but also just get more insights on what the industry is doing. And this is also something that GMX has been working very closely with.
Awesome. And on the GMX side, coin flipper Jonezee, what do you guys have coming up for the audience that you can share with the audience here?
Yeah, I think Raoul already foreshadowed it a little bit, but of course, at GMX, we're also looking at first and foremost additional crypto assets. Afterwards, looking into different asset classes, potentially listing those on GMX and offering a trading platform for those as well. That's a long-term vision, and obviously that's something that we're focused on building out slowly but robustly. For now, this is a gentle process, and we're launching new markets every other couple of weeks, making sure that these settings and parameters in the back end are all adjusted appropriately and have secure. Well, we make sure our security partners look through everything in detail and ensure that everything is optimally set up. That process will continue, and we'll continue listing these assets. And at the same time, discussions are ongoing in the DAO, of course, about deployments on other potential chains. But for now, it's really about building out the core GMX v2 product, and that has recently improved further with the launch of GMX v2.1, which offered a number of additional UX optimizations. And there's about to be an interesting incentive campaign launching on the Avalanche side as well that will make it even more attractive for users to engage with the Avalanche blockchain and experiment with GMX trading and DeFi liquidity provision on GMX. So that will further reinforce these efforts to bring additional traders on chain, and particularly users from the centralized exchange space, and make it very clear to them that the on-chain space has grown tremendously over the last couple of years, and that it's really worth trying out trading on chain, seeing all the UX optimizations, and the importance of permissionlessness in that sense is also something we're constantly hammering on. So we're really doing our best to expand the number of markets that we have available, and simultaneously make sure the UX is as good as it gets, and convince as many centralized exchange traders to make the transition to the DEX space.
Yeah, and the upcoming incentives are, I think you hinted at that a little bit, but that's our community is starting to pick up on that a little bit. So excited to see that, roll out with you guys. I know we did some campaigns almost 2 years ago at this point, but excited to, really relaunch that program and get things going there. So, and maybe one last thing before we move on to audience questions. Raoul, on the Chainlink side, if a new DeFi protocol wanted to, or an existing DeFi protocol in the ecosystem wanted to, inquire about data streams, or maybe get data streams integrated into their product, what's the best way for them to get started?
Yeah, I think there's two ways. Just very quick notes. Data Streams currently in what we call basically early access, and what that means is basically just reach out. Just give me a DM, hit me up on Telegram, or actually on Twitter is probably the only place right now. But hit me up on Twitter, or go to the docs page for Data Streams, and you can just fill in a type form, and we'll get in touch to hook you up with some credentials and a proper integrator guide.
Awesome. Appreciate everyone's time today. Kyle, I think at this point we can maybe shift gears to audience Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to echo what Eric said. Definitely thankful for you guys to come on and walk us through that, because I think this is like at the forefront of innovation around DeFi protocols, and there's a lot that's going to happen from here on out. So it's exciting to see these two come together and really offer it, like you said, on Avalanche as one of the first two, just because of the speed and the tech that makes this all possible. So we're going to go into some audience questions. It looks like we have a little bit of time. We'll take a few questions, and if any of our speakers have to drop off, just let me know. But we definitely want to keep the questions super focused on Chainlink Data Streams and in reference to our guests here, and not stray too far from that. So we got Gucci Man up first. You're up.
Yes, hi. Thank you for giving me the space. My question actually would be to the Chainlink folks. Is there any concerns that obviously that there are a lot of competition, especially in 2024, is popping up? And would that be I'm not saying is that obviously everybody loves Chainlink, but there are a lot of decentralized Oracle space that is also doing the same thing. Is that a concern for you guys that might take away some of the assets or transactions, whatever, away from you guys, like the same thing what Solana did to Ethereum?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you should never be concerned with competition as any company, frankly. If competition concerns you, that means that you're not doing something right, probably. I think you're right to mention that there's more pull oracles, but frankly, there have also always been more push oracles. When we launched our first push feed back in, I think it was 2020. God, I'm getting old. But when we launched our first push feed, we also had quite a bit of competition. And ultimately, what really mattered is just doing a really good job, like just having really reliable, high quality performance. And at some point, your competitors who cut corners, they're going to mess up at some point. And one by one, you've kind of seen protocols just realize, why would you pick something different than the super high quality and the super low latency? And when we look at, for example, third-party analyses, like this is not even our own internal data, but like third-party analyses like Chaos Labs, like they look at a bunch of different pull oracles. We are the fastest and the most accurate across the industry. So it feels like one of those places where obviously we need to make sure that we keep doing a really great job. But over time, it should just become clear, like, why would you pick a lower quality asset when we're here?
Great. Thank you.
Good answer. Nice, Raoul. I feel the same, man, and we're in this boat as well. As like, if you're not worried about if you're worried about the competition, it means that you gotta ship a little harder. So I appreciate that perspective. Gucci Man, thanks for coming up in the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got another minute or so. If there's any more questions, just request up real quick, and we'll let you up here. But in the meantime, if there's anything else you guys want to share that we haven't gone over yet, it looks like we probably don't have any questions yet. So let's just push into some final thoughts and wrap this up today. Everybody can go back about their day and their evening, and I appreciate you guys coming from all the parts of the world to join us. So from the GMX side, any final thoughts on this particular topic and things to look out for going forward?
Yeah, I think one thing worth mentioning that we haven't touched on yet is when it comes to the question of what Chainlink Data Streams makes possible, GMX has recently introduced new markets, which are single token markets for BTC, Ethereum, as well as AVAX on the Avalanche deployment. And thanks to data streams, it's now possible to utilize these new markets and basically buy GM tokens. The GM pools are the liquidity pools of GMX v2. And you can buy these GM tokens and basically support trading on GMX, earn fees, and earn good yield on your tokens without being exposed to stable coins or without being exposed to a permanent loss. So you're basically providing liquidity just with your Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Avalanche tokens supporting GMX trading in the process and earning excellent rewards as a result. Those new markets are a product of our collaboration with Data Streams, and I think are an interesting way of highlighting what is possible in the DeFi sector nowadays.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing even more of those capabilities unlocked. We'll kick it over to you, Raoul. Any final thoughts that you wanted to share that maybe we didn't cover yet?
Yeah, I mean, quickly hooking in what Jonezee just said. So the for the GM token feeds, we will be spinning those up as well for the single-sided feeds. So we already launched GM BTC, GM ETH, and GM ARB for the dual-sided markets, but we're also going to spin those up for the single-sided markets in the coming weeks on both Arbitrum and AVAX, so that the rest of DeFi can also integrate these markets and make it even easier to become this passive LP on GMX and both earn the trading fees and support a really, really good protocol. So watch out for more.
Nice. Yeah, that's going to open up a whole lot more on the single side. So excited to hear that. So yeah, we just want to thank you guys again for joining us. Eric, thanks again for walking us through everything. Excited to see what comes next with this. Excited to see where Data Streams unlocks things across many different DeFi protocols. And yeah, more to come. So we appreciate this. We'll have a recording up of this space up on our YouTube probably in the next day or two. And then, yeah, everyone can share it and re-listen. So thanks everybody for joining and your time today. Hope everyone has a good rest of your week. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys later.
Cheers.